welcome you to the NextGen Pulse channel. This channel is a place where leadership shapes the future, and it's primarily for SMEs and for women and youth who are in the business of developing their businesses. So they are in the business of developing and advancing their businesses. And today we want to look at all the changes that are taking place globally and what that means as far as leadership is concerned and the impact on their businesses. Because you see, if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, it's important for you to be able to observe the patterns and the trends that are going on globally and their implication for your business. That's how you become strategic. So, if you look at all that has happened, there's no doubt that since the 70s, there has been a lot of systemic changes globally. Now, so the question that most entrepreneurs are asking is, what are the leadership implications for businesses, institutions, and organizations? It is a very legitimate question, because you see, if you don't observe the patterns as an entrepreneur, if you don't observe what is happening around you as a business person, you'll be amazed that even though you may be number one, but the people behind you, if they are critically observing the patterns and the changes taking place within the industry and are able to develop the necessary skills and competencies, you may think you are number one, but they are going to overtake you, which is very, very important. That is why I'm doing this, this special edition for you, the African entrepreneur, the woman who is in business, the young entrepreneur who is in business and has the dream of growing your business. Listen, in 1976, there's a gentleman by name Thomas Friedman. Now, he published a very interesting seminal paper titled Trading Tyranny for Freedom: How Open Markets Till the Soil of Democracy. Now, on a superficial value, on the face value, when you look at the title, Trading Tyranny for Freedom: How Open Markets Till the Soil of Democracy, chances are that you probably conclude that this is, a political book or a political writer. But listen, this is not a political writer. In actual fact, he summed up the forces that would drive change and shape the future of businesses across the entire world. Now, there are people whose focus is to constantly research and understand the factors, the forces that are driving changes all across the world. And this seminal paper presented by Thomas Friedman in 1976 is one of such people. And if you're an entrepreneur in Africa, I want to urge you, please, just Google the man and look for that paper and read it. Now, in that book, he summed up 4 forces that he believes, this as far back as 1976, are going to drive change globally. Number one, he talked about dominance of free enterprise system. I'm not going to go into the detail. Later on when we can have another session to go into the details and how each of these forces are going to, are driving change, when he predicted this as far back as in 1976. Then he talked about changes in geopolitics and globalization. Emphasis of geopolitics is mine, but he talked about globalization. But if you look at all that has happened the last 10 years, globally, geopolitical issues, together with globalization, are driving major changes in the business setup. Then he talked about knowledgeable customers with options, and this is key. About 25 years ago, I wrote a book titled Customer Service is Attitude, Not a Department. Now, listen. Today, if you really want to grow your business, it is critical that you understand who your customers are. The banks will do what they call KYC, know your customers. Sorry. And as an entrepreneur, it's always important for you to know who your customers really are, because your business cannot serve everybody. Take, for example, hotels. There are hotels that are 5-star hotels, and there are hotels that are 1-star hotels. So they serve different clienteles. Okay? And we are saying that in this dispensation, with the advent of knowledge, globalization, technology, and all of that, the customers are not passive any longer. Customers are more knowledgeable, and Thomas Friedman talked about that. Then the final thing he talked about is rapid advancement in technology. Now, this is very, very important because you see, if you look at what has happened on the global landscape, the last maybe 25 or 30 years, technology has fast advanced. Now we are talking about AI, machine learning, blockchain, and all of that. Only God knows how these forces are going to drive change. Today, if you go to some places, like in America and some parts of China, there are vehicles that do not have drivers. It's called self-drive. All by enabled by AI. So you order for a car, the car comes straight to your doorstep. You sit in, there's no driver. The car will just drive you to your destination. Everything is programmed by technology. This is what Thomas Friedman, predicted as far back as 1976. Then in 2012, there's a gentleman also by name Bob Johansen. Now, Bob Johansen is described as the futurist. Now, when we say somebody is a futurist, this is somebody who thinks and strategically focuses on the future. What is going to happen in the next 10 years, the next 20 years? These are people who do research, always looking at what the little changes that are taking place globally and what the impact is going to look like. Now, he also predicted that the world would experience what he termed as VUCA or VUCA. In other words, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And Johansen said that the world is going to be in such a way that these forces are going to drive changes on the global scene. There will be a lot of volatility, uncertainty, and the world is going to be so complex and so ambiguous that you cannot predict what is going to happen tomorrow. Today, everybody is a witness to what is happening now. You go to sleep, the next day you wake up, something has happened. Look at what global warming is happening to a lot of things. Now, just take global warming for example. Because of global warming, it's affecting agriculture, it's affecting health, it's affecting finance, it's affecting the what we call supply chain. Just one factor. And that is what these guys predicted. Then again in 2020, now this is very interesting, very, very interesting. Another futurist by name Jamal Cashew, he came up with a new scenario for the world's future development known as BANI, B-A-N-I. Now, this is a very interesting scenario that he said. Now, BANI for him is an acronym that captures how the world looks today and into the future. Very, very interesting. Now, so whereas Thomas Friedman was talking about advancement in rapid technology, rapid advancement in technology, we talked about globalization and geopolitical issues. We talked about knowledgeable customers. We talked about a free enterprise system. Then Johansen also talks about VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Now, Jamal Castillo says that there's going to be what we call BANI, B-A-N-I, where the B stands for brittle. Now, and he was referring to systems that, while appearing stable, have the potential to break under stress due to global interconnectedness. And as all over emphasis on efficiency at the expense of essential organizational factors. So, whereas certain things appear to be stable, and therefore we place emphasis on predictability based on efficiency and whatever. Now, what Castillo is saying is that there will be some underlying factors that are not perceptibly known, but they are going to destabilize what appears to be very, very stable. You get a point. That is what the B stands for. And then he talked again about the A. Remember I said BANI means B-A-N-I. Now the A in this case stands for anxious or anxiety. Now according to Cashew, anxiety is going to be a significant emotional toll in the contemporary world that is driven by constant uncertainty and rapid pace of change. In other words, because of the frequency of change, is going to create uncertainty. Now, remember that Johans has already talked about uncertainty under the VUCA world. Now, Germain Gasquet is also underlying the same thing. Now, and then Thomas Friedman also said in 1976 that because of technology is going to, predict and really cause a lot of havoc in the system. All of us are witnesses of what is happening now. Now, again, under the body, the N for him stands for non-linear. In other words, non-linear dynamics in the body world, in this case refers to the absence of predictability, cause and effect, predictable cause and effect relationship. In other words, things are going to be such a way that in the past, you can say that if I plant seed, let's say I plant tomato seed, I'll get tomato maybe after 3 months or 6 months. If I train my staff, say in customer service, I can now say that because I'm giving them training, it will impact on my profitability because it can lead to a lot more customers coming to buy my product. What he's saying is that there's nothing like those linear lines any longer because there are some underlying issues that will not make the cause and effect relationship effective any longer. My dear friend, in other words, if you're a manager, you must understand this, that in this non-linear world, minor issues can lead to unexpected and complex outcomes that can complicate predictability in various systems such as economics and healthcare. I mentioned the issue of global warming, for example, which is a very classic example that I can give you. Now, why? Because it's a prime example of a situation in which decisions embracing non-linearity allows leaders to anticipate better and respond to unpredictable dynamics of today's world. So, a farmer goes to plant his or her seed, and he says that when I apply my fertilizer, when I do this and I do that, I can anticipate and predict that I can have maybe 20 bags of maize. Now, but with global warming, how are you sure that you're going to get that? Somebody is sitting somewhere and he is thinking that, the farmer is going to bring this and therefore I'm going to get maize and wheat to prepare bread and all of that. Then all of a sudden, that predictability becomes unpredictable because you cannot get it. So what happens? It leads to healthcare issues. It leads to economic crisis. Now, take for example the war in Iran right now. Nobody predicted it. Nobody knew it was going to come. As a result, oil prices have skyrocketed. What does that mean? Even though it's happening all the way in Iran, but you may be in Africa, in Zimbabwe, in Ghana, in Eswatini, in Malawi, in Kenya, or for that matter, maybe Cape Verde. Yet you are feeling the pinch. So what we are saying, there's no predictable circumstances any longer. Something that is happening all the way in Iran has the power to force you to change the course of your business. That is what we are talking about here. So the body world helps us to understand that the cause and effect relationship that we have relied upon for many decades is no longer dependable any longer. Then the I stands for incomprehensibility. In this case, incomprehensible complexities will present challenges that hinder our understanding of crucial relationships in the body world. Now, if you can understand the dynamics of the issue and observe the patterns, then you can predict. But we are going to move into a certain situation in this global economy that such that because of the unpredictability of the relationships that exist, the cause and effect that he talked about is going to be such that you cannot even understand crucial relationships any longer. So as an entrepreneur, must you go to sleep? Or what must you do? It calls for you to understand that you need to change not only your perspective, not only your resources, but also how you govern and how you lead your business. That is the essence of this presentation. Very, very important. And I hope you followed me up to this point. And by the way, if you have not subscribed to this channel, I want to urge you to subscribe. This is the channel where leadership shapes the future. So, if you have not subscribed, please subscribe, like it, and share this video with your friend, because we are working together on leadership or with leadership to shape the future. So, if I can summarize, we are saying the body world determines how we need to act in the new world conditions going forward. When you understand the forces, when you understand the brittle nature of the circumstances and the anxieties, things that are going to cause you anxiety and all of that, and then you understand the non-linear dynamics in the circumstances, then you come to appreciate that incompressibility is going to be part of the course. So what are you going to do, my friend? That is why we're asking the question, what are the implications for leadership? Because you see, implicitly, all these futurists are referring to the forces of change in both the present and the future, and the impact it's going to have on organizations and leadership. So you cannot sit down as an entrepreneur and say that because I have my stock, I have my money. Some of you may even say, I have a very good, credit line with my bank. So anytime I need money, all I need to do is call my bank and give them money. Yes, you may have the money, but have you considered the other factors that are going to impact on your business? And what kind of leadership skills do you have to deal with these matters? You see, if we sum it up, we are talking about forces such as globalization. And I'm not going to go into details on this. Policy reforms. Because of global warming, countries are coming up with all kinds of reforms. Technological developments are taking place. Look at the computer industry. Look at air travel. Look at internet. Now, travel agents today have direct lines set up that you can just go online. So if air travel is now have been digitized, and you have, for example, what we call travel agent, and you are waiting for people to walk into your office to be able to book air flights, what's going to happen to your business? Internet has made your business. It has affected your business. Yes, you may have some customers who are not digitally savvy, and therefore they may want to come to you, but a chunk of your customers are not going to come to you. They'll go straight online of this airline and book their flights there. These are forces that you cannot ignore. So when these things are coming up and they are emerging, you must ask yourself, am I going to remain a passive manager, or I need to learn the skills that will help me to advance my business, for example? Okay? Today, if you go to some supermarkets, there are financial services that are provided in this supermarket, and they're providing financial services there. Now, there are new entrants, for example, direct lines, online retailers. Now, today, Toyota has gone into a luxury market. Now, Toyota used to provide cars just for, everyday work and all of that. Today, they are going to the luxury market. Apple, okay? Look at Apple iPod to Sony, Walkman. Look at the computer. Lovino into the PC customer sophistication. So all these things, ladies and gentlemen, are forces that are creating more choices, and customers are becoming discerning. So the critical question all of us must ask, whether we are entrepreneurs, whether we are facilitators, whether we are managers, whether we are shareholders, whatever, is this: how critical is leadership development to today's business operations? How critical is leadership development to today's business operations? Must I just be a manager, or I must develop the competencies that will help me to not just manage my business well, but to be able to observe the patterns and have a creative mindset, strategic mindset, to be able to take the business from one level, weather the storm, and grow the business to another level. Peter Drucker, and I think all of us know Peter Drucker, a very astute management consultant. Peter Drucker. He said, he's quoted as saying that the greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence itself. Rather, it is to act with yesterday's logic. Think about it. The greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence itself, but to sit in the comfort of your office or home and rely on your old strategies. Rely on your old knowledge. I'm a good manager. I'm a good supervisor. I'm a good entrepreneur. And think that because you have been good in the past, you can take the business to another level with the same old logic. That is a danger. And Mr. Drucker advises all entrepreneurs, particularly in this century, let's not make that mistake. Let's not make that mistake. Let's understand the patterns. Let's understand the forces that are changing the course of businesses all across Europe, all across Northern America, all across our continent, Africa. And what are the competencies? What are the leadership competencies, leadership skills that we can develop to grow our business? And here I'm talking not just as enterprises with respect to profit making, including NGOs, including institutions, including government establishments, including organizations, banks, and what have you. You cannot run your business with the same management principles, the same management styles, the same management mindset and logic when all these forces are staring at you. And listen, if you think that they will not affect you, I'll give you just a few more weeks or months. Again, take a clue from what has happened in Iran. And if you're in the supply chain, when COVID struck, all of us knew how the supply chain was totally disrupted. And if that was your business, what could you have done? A lot of companies went under. And those that had creative mind, like Zoom, like Teams, they become overnight billionaires, if not zillionaires. That's what we are. If you're able to predict the forces, then you're able to make the necessary changes so that your company will not go under. So, before we go any further, I want us to pause because we are talking about leadership. And for many people, whenever you talk about leadership, all they're saying, oh, but I am a good manager. Oh, leaders and managers are the same. So I want us to pause because I'm talking about the implications on leadership for businesses with respect to all the forces that are driving change in the ecosystem today. So, the debate has gone on for some time. The difference between leadership and management. And before we go further, I want us to pause and just look at this debate. So let me ask the question. And if you have followed me up to this point, perhaps you can make your own notes by asking the question, what is management? And I want to pause here. What is management for you? You've been a middle-level manager for some time. What is management for you in this true sense of management? Now, when you look at management in its true core, you come to understand that management is the attainment of organizational goals in an effective and efficient manner through planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling organizational resources. So in a sense, we are talking about material stuff, and the ability to control, the ability to plan, ability to, look at the processes. That is management. It has nothing to do with visionary. It has nothing to do with strategically aligning people behind the organizations. So, if that is management, then the question we must also ask ourselves, because if we are talking about the implication of all these forces on leadership, then the question is, what is leadership in this sense? And please follow me. Because you see, the understanding of a matter solves about 80% of the problem. And when we understand what leadership is about, and we're able to distinct it from management, then it helps you to appreciate why we are saying that in this particular times of rapid changes, what we call BANI or VUCA, or in the case of Thomas Friedman, rapid advancement in technology, globalization, and what have you, you will come to appreciate why you need to develop these leadership competencies to be able to drive your business from the chaotic situation and become great. So, what is leadership? Now, and for those of you who have done a bit of studies on leadership, you can have a million definitions of leadership in the literature. But I want to focus on this simple definition. It says, leadership is the process whereby an individual can influence a group of people, a group of individuals to achieve a common goal. No. Pause and listen to this. Management is the effective and efficient use of resources to achieve organizational goals through planning, staffing, and all of that. Controlling. But here leadership is talking about where an individual is able to influence a group of individuals to achieve a common goal. Nothing about resources, nothing about controlling, nothing about planning. It's about strategically envisioning a goal. And how do you get people to buy into that goal? Influence them so that they can work with you to achieve the goal, whereby even under normal circumstances, they themselves wouldn't have liked to do what you would want them to do because of your influence. That is leadership, my friend. So if you look at it carefully, there's a distinction between leadership and management. So generally speaking, and I say generally speaking, leadership involves a process, it involves activities, and involves influence that occurs within a group in a particular context in pursuit of a common goal. Now, this is very, very important. Leadership, my friend, leadership, when we talk about it, is a process. It is not a one-time thing, because once you start an organization, you want to grow that organization, that enterprise, from point A to point Z. That process can take 10 years, can take 20 years, can take 15 years. So it's a process. Now, and in that process, now, the futurists have made us understand that there are forces that are going to push you around, and you need to develop certain competencies to be able to manage that business in a manner that you can marshal the people around you to achieve that goal. So here, it involves influence that occurs within the group in a particular context, all in pursuit of the goal that you have set for yourself. Now, I like what Brian Tracy said when he defines leadership, and that's just in line with what we are saying. Brian Tracy has defined leadership as the ability to get extraordinary results from ordinary people. Now, isn't that amazing? The ability, the competencies, the strategic intent that bring to play your ability to influence ordinary people, not controlling them, but influencing them to achieve extraordinary results. In other words, these are men and women that under normal circumstances, you will not even engage them in pursuit of a dream. But because you're a leader, you see the potential in them. Managers don't do that. Manager is looking at the resources that's available. In fact, to a very large extent, we can equate managers to politicians in Africa. They complain about the problem, lack of budgets, and why this project cannot be executed, because there's no money. So it makes you think, were they elected, in this case, to come and solve a problem or to just manage a problem? Leaders focus on the issue. They appreciate the absence of the resources, the money, whatever is not there, but they are able to focus on the people. And even though they are ordinary people, are able to achieve extraordinary results because they were able to influence them. They were able to build their own internal capacity and exert influence, not control, not manipulate, influence them to extract extraordinary results from these individuals. My name is Emmanuel Dei-Tumi, and if you have not subscribed to this channel, NextGen Pulse, if today is your first time of watching this, please subscribe. Join the family, the community, where leadership shapes the future. That's our focus. So, what we are talking about here is that, in a sense, management is about effective and efficient implementation of an agenda. Effective and efficient implementation of an agenda, a set goal or objective or a vision. It involves controlling. It involves positioning. It involves the use of power and authority. That is what management is about. That means management is about specific steps and timetables to implement the strategies and how to convert plans into financial projections and goals. That is what management is about. It is not about how to develop the potential of the people. It's not about how to create a vision. It's not about how to develop a strategy. Somebody has to develop the strategy. The managers will not come to put the strategy in place by focusing on planning and step by step, what I call tactical functions, to be able to achieve the goals that have been envisioned. So, I'm not sure whether you still have any argument in your mind that there's a clear distinction between leadership and management. Because leadership, on the other hand, is about the future direction of the organization. It doesn't depend on position like management, although it may involve certain positions or certain power. And if you really want to understand this, I would perhaps quote what J.P. Cotter from Harvard has said. And I like J.P. Cotter's definition of leadership because it sums it all as to the essence of leadership. J.P. Cotter said, leadership is the development of vision and strategies, whereas management is focusing on controlling and the resources and all of that. Leadership in this case is the development of vision and strategies, the alignment of relevant people behind those strategies, and the empowerment of the individuals to make the vision happen. A leader will focus on the people and ask the question, if there is no money, how can we achieve our vision despite the absence of money? Because the leader looks at the people and says, people have potential. That's why in some jurisdictions they say the greatest asset, the most important asset of every organization is the people. Why? Because it takes the people to unearth the potential of the organization. So the total capital, if you like, of every organization is not the furniture. In fact, it's not even the money in the bank. The complete asset of an entire organization is the cumulative capital, the cumulative capacity of the people in that organization. And that is why it is so important, ladies and gentlemen, for us to understand the implications of all that is going on in this global world on leadership. So, leadership, therefore, is about creating vision and strategies. That is the ability to create a sensible and appealing picture of the future. That is vision. A sensible and appealing picture of the future and the logic strategies for how that vision can be achieved. That's all leadership is about. It's not about controlling. It's not about resources. It's not about processes, planning. No! Leadership is so distinct from management because it is the ability to create that vision and the strategies and how to organize the people behind that vision to achieve that particular vision that we are talking about, even where there is no resources. So, again, let me say this. If you are an entrepreneur and you have not subscribed to this channel, and if you believe that what you are hearing, what you are getting today will enrich your capacity to do more and to bring your business to another level, please subscribe to this channel. And please share this link with your fellow African entrepreneur. People are going through tough times. People are going through difficult times. And primarily because we have not appreciated the true value of leadership in running our businesses. So let me talk about levels of leadership here. Because you have to understand that there are various levels of leadership. Number one, there are three, generally, there are three levels of leadership. The first I'll call frontline or team leadership. This is to do with, specific tasks. So there's a particular task that needs to be performed in an organization. And then maybe you need to bring somebody from accounts, bring somebody from marketing, bring somebody from, say, customer service, and you put them together to achieve a particular task. That's a front line. So the activity is already defined. The end game is already defined. It is a matter of how do we work through the process to achieve it. That's a specific task. And at that level, they become the frontline or team leadership. That is the first level of leadership. Then we have what we call the operational leadership. Now, this is to do with the bigger organization. And here we are talking about the day-to-day operations within the organization. So you talk about the head of this, the head of that, the head of that, the head of that, the head of that. All these people constitute leadership, but at the operational level. So therefore, they look at the implementation of the strategic vision of that organization. So somebody can be a frontline manager, a frontline leader, and grow through the mill to come to become operational leader. Because once he was a frontline leader and he led the rudiments of the game, he or she built the capacity to the point where now he becomes a head of department and therefore become part of the operational leadership that we are talking about here. So that's another level of leadership. Then we have what we call the strategic leadership. Now, as the word strategy implies, strategic leadership here is about the bigger picture, the ability, like JP Kota said, to develop that vision, a sensible picture of the future, a sensible and appealing picture of the future. That is at the strategic level. So the head of the organization, that's what we call Chief Executive Officer. The word Chief Executive Officer is not just a romantic word. It means you are the chief executioner of the strategy of the organization. So at that level, we are talking about strategic leadership. So you focus on the bigger picture and the processes that can bring about the attainment of that goal, that vision, that strategic intent. So you focus on the future and then you orientate towards change. You program yourself, you plan everything you do to bring about change so that that idea, that vision, that objective, that end game can be achieved at that level of the organization. That is why Brian Tracy said, leadership is the ability to work with ordinary people, or leadership the ability to achieve extraordinary results by focusing primarily on ordinary people. That is what leadership does. So at the strategic level, not only do you become strategic thinker, you also talk about strategies to get the goal or the objective accomplished. That is what we mean by the three levels of leadership. So now let me turn my attention to the implications, the leadership implications for businesses and institutions in this current, I'll call, chaotic state of affairs. And when I say chaotic, I'm not talking about a hopeless situation. I am talking about a VUCA kind of context, where you have things that are volatile, things that are unpredictable, uncertainty. They are very complex. They are interrelated. One thing happens in one jurisdiction and it affects you where you are not contributing to the cause. So all these things is not about management. It will not require management. It's going to require leadership. And that is why it's important for the entrepreneur in Africa to understand it. Because of the turbulent nature of the world we live in today. Please listen. Businesses and organizations are looking for leaders. And in looking for leaders, these must be people who focus on how can we develop the ability to work in such a way that we can convert volatile situations into visions? Or when situations are very uncertain, how do we create and develop an understanding of that uncertain situation to be able to, navigate it in such a way that complex situations, we can have some clarity out of that, and then be able to convert ambiguity into agility. Now, so if you're an entrepreneur or you're a business executive and you want to groom your people, you want to develop people into leadership, look for people who have these potentials. Can they convert volatile situations into vision? In other words, there are people who are going to throw their hands in the air and say, what can we do? What are we going to do? And complain. No. They study the patterns. They study the circumstances. They're able to look at the complex nature and create clarity out of it. Volatile situations, and they're able to create vision out of it. But when the situation is ambiguous, they become agile. In other words, my friend, as environments and contexts move from stability to uncertainty, or when there's any change in any environment, or when there's a desire for better results, you don't look, better result, you don't look for managers. You are looking for leaders that can study the modus of operation and can best articulate leadership competences. Because listen, any change that requires systemic change will not require management. It will require leadership. Why? Because managers will focus on what exists, their resources, the assets, and how they can effectively and efficiently plan around the resources, execute them to achieve. But what happens if the context is so uncertain and complex? It needs you to change the way you think. You need to change your strategic intent. And that is not a function of management. It's a function of leadership. Can you see clarity in the midst of the complexity? Can you be agile? That is what we are talking about. So to conclude, listen, let's look at what are the leadership skills that every leader who is operating in this changing VUCA world must have. And I want to give you a few of them. The first is that if you want to become an effective leader in this dispensation, number one, develop a change mindset. Develop a change mindset. In other words, when the work environment changes, can you be agile and capable of making quick decisions during times of crisis or change? That's a change mindset. You don't throw your hands up in the air. You don't say there's no budget. You don't say there's no resources. Like I said earlier, you don't act like a politician. You become a leader in this sense. So that's the first skill you need to develop. A change mindset. Ready to become agile. Ready to pivot and say, listen, this is not working. How can we turn this around? Like somebody said, thinking outside the box. So that's the first skill. The second skill, if we are going to become agile and operate effectively as a leader in this dispensation, one of the things you're also going to need, and this is very, very important, because you see, the change can happen, but it can only happen when it is driven by leaders. So you must realize that organizations will become more fluid in this changing, in this time that changes are taking place. So therefore, there is going to be the need to recognize the advent of non-hierarchical structures and shifts to more project-based working context. You know, those days when you sit in the comfort of your office, close your door, and tell people, no, you put a notice, knock before you enter my office. That's a typical management concept, mindset. If you're going to become effective in this dispensation, please learn to be agile, learn to understand that organizations are fluid now. Therefore, you need, and this is very careful, to recognize that there is a need for non-hierarchical strategy. Run your organization as flat. It doesn't take anything away from you. It doesn't take anything away from your title. If you're the CEO, you're the CEO. It depends on how you lead. But if you're going to become a typical title-holding manager, trust me, you're going to have serious problems. That's a mindset I would recommend for you. The third mindset or the third skill you need as a leader in this time is the idea of collaboration and shared goals. Now, leaders must learn that it pays in this time to work together. So this silo management mindset, I'm the accounts or finance manager. I have nothing to do with customer service. So when there's a problem to do with customer service, you can take it to the customer service department. No. Now organizations are operating systemically. Interconnectedness has taken place. So work together, develop that collaboration mindset. It will take you further. Then create flexible work context and talent sharing. So somebody is so good in finance, but that same person can support marketing. Leaders must learn to use flexible workforce to perform one-off or short-term projects. In other words, to be able to fill the skills gap. If you are going to say that, for me, I am a finance guy and I keep my team to myself, when that person is so versatile and can work in different departments, it is the organization that is going to suffer. So leaders must know their staff, they must know their team very well, so that they can fill the skills gaps without necessarily having to look outside to bring in external people. And finally, you must, be able to think on your feet as a problem solver. So these are some of the key skills that you need as a leader if you are going to function effectively in this dispensation. Now, let me focus on how do you function as an effective leader? What does it take to function as an effective leader? I'm not going to go too much into detail. I'll just give you some of the highlights, and then later on, we can. If you want to function as an effective leader in this dispensation, the first point you must have is that you must understand that. You understand what you need to understand first and foremost is your leadership style. Are you autocratic? Does your environment require autocratic leadership? Are you laissez-faire? Does your environment that you are working in, the context in which you are working, does it accept laissez-faire leadership? So once you understand your leadership style and you understand the context within which you are working, if you are able to pivot and know that there's a need for you to change your leadership style based on the context, that will make you an effective leader. So for example, you've operated in a situation where everybody must come to work, physical space. But now circumstances are such that you cannot have everybody at the workspace because of what we all know COVID has brought. What's going to be your leadership style? That will permeate throughout the organization. You need that style. And how do you modify it? So that's the first. Understand your leadership style and the context within which you are working. This is very, very important. The second thing is that you're going to have the skill to encourage creativity, or what I call intellectual stimulation. Listen, because of the uncertainty, the uncertain nature of the context in which you're operating, one of the skills you're going to need as a leader is your ability to understand every situation that is happening at the speed of light. And that means you have to have an open mindset. Listen, you don't know it all. You don't know it all. And if you look at the ignorance pyramid, you come to appreciate that the C-suite leaders know only 10% of all the variables that are operating. It is what we call the customer-facing staff that know a lot about what is happening in the environment in which you are operating your whole organization. So have an intellectual stimulation mindset. Be open to ideas. And if you do that, that's a good skill that you're going to develop, and that will make you effective. The next skill you need is to serve as a role model. Listen, people observe. Your subordinates observe you. And the role you are playing, there are expectations of you. So if you want to be an effective leader in this dispensation, be a role model. When you say we are meeting at 10, be there at 10. When you set boundaries, conform to the boundaries. Don't say I'm the leader and therefore I can violate. No, you will not be effective. You will not be effective. The third skill you need, or maybe the next skill you need, is to be passionate. And when you are passionate, you become empathic. You begin to show that you care about the people. You begin to let the team or the people you are working with know that you are vulnerable. You're a human being just like them. You know, many years ago when I was doing training for a particular company, I was shocked to hear that the company has 2 lifts or elevators, and one of them is solely dedicated to the CEO. And there are times where there's traffic, and whether the CEO is there or not, nobody can go into that elevator. How empathic can you be as a leader in that context? So that's a skill. Be passionate. Then you need to be able to communicate effectively. Listen, communication as a leader is one of the major tools that you need. When you communicate, when you give instructions, do you find out whether your people have really understood what you have said? Because if they don't understand what you have communicated, remember that they are going to bring back an outcome. And because they do not understand what you are saying, the attainment of that strategy is going to be bizarre. Why? Because you did not communicate effectively. So evaluate your own self and ask yourself, do people understand me when I talk? Do people understand me when I communicate, either by writing or your body language or just by verbal communication? How effectively do you communicate as a leader? The next skill you need is you must be adaptable. Listen, leadership occurs in context, different environments, different contexts. And if you're going to stick to one leadership style, you cannot be effective. When the context changes, adapt your leadership style. So be adaptable as a leader. And then I've talked about empathic. So the other one that I want to talk about is be proactive. Be proactive. If you are going to wait for problems to come before you solve them, you become a manager. Leaders think ahead. Now, your industry may be different. So you know the challenges in your industry. So if you know that, you are going to need, based on what is happening in your environment, in your industry, it is likely that you are going to have to need computers. You are going to have to need, improve your ICT technology. And you are not budgeting for it. When the time comes when you critically need it, and you have not thought strategically towards it, it will affect you. So strategic thinking is a skill you are going to need as a leader. Then you must focus. And if you do that, your leadership skills will be known by all your team members. Listen, my name is Emmanuel Dei-Tumi. And if you have not subscribed to this channel, NextGen Pulse, if today is your first time of watching this, please subscribe. Join the family, the community, where leadership shapes the future. That's our focus for entrepreneurs, for SMEs, and for women and youth who are in business. This is what the channel. So please subscribe, share the link, and let everybody know that we are on the move to shaping the future through our leadership competencies. Thank you for watching. I'll come your way another time. Thank you.